for help. And the entire time I've been a target of torture. I didn't just spend all of my time on the computer, but all of the time that I have spent on the computer has been for my son. The rest of the time that I spent was walking because the United States has stolen my cars from me in both Canada and after I reported their agents in 2004. They stole my car from me. Basically, they stole my right to drive, and then they stole my car. So during that time, I've had to walk or take a bus trying to find work. And because the FBI has slandered me and defamed me so badly, they made it impossible, pretty much impossible for me to get work with anybody except for a federal government person who already knew that I was being tortured and knew that I wasn't crazy, but decides, well, if they want to use me, now nobody else wants me, so they'll be ready and waiting. Basically, they made me so impossible to hire that the only group that could hire me was the federal government. They made sure nobody else hired me, that I couldn't get ahead in any way. They just wanted me under their thumb. So I've spent hours, days, weeks, months, years looking for work, hoping I could get work in a normal job where people are not using me for research or trying to get me hooked up with their federal employee for some kind of a romantic liaison. And after you're defamed and blacklisted by the federal government, it's pretty much impossible to get work. So then when I finally do get work, and when I end up finding work, in the last few years, every single time that I've ended up with work, it's been with federally connected people who are just using me again. Not for work, sure, in the workplace you use your employees to get the job done. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being used in other ways. I don't have a problem being an employee. But the United States government has wanted to use me and not even pay me for that. If they pay me anything, it's for the job that they tell me that I'm doing for them, which is usually minimum wage. And in the meantime, the people that are using me are getting paid a lot of money to continue using me. The United States made it impossible for me to get my son back because all they've done is basically laugh at me and degrade me while I spent all this time doing everything that any normal citizen would do to get their child back and to be believed that this country has tortured them and their child. They've basically had me. I mean, I've said that they've been trying to drown me. They have. But it's also like they've had their foot on my head the entire time. You know, it's like the cartoon where the person is, their legs are moving so fast and they're running the whole time. And they don't realize, or, you know, somebody picks them up while they're running, and their legs are still moving and they're still running. They still think that they're going somewhere. And the entire time they're going nowhere. Because this country has made sure that I go nowhere. And that my son goes nowhere. My son does not have a future in the United States. And my son does not have a future without his mother, without me. I am his only security. And I am his mother. I know what he needs, and I have always had a right to raise my own child. I knew 11 years ago that this country was blacklisting me. And even though I wasn't being tortured 11 years ago, and while the torture, only like constant torture, began about 7 years ago, "11 years ago I was looking at teaching English abroad because I already knew that something was happening with my ability to get work in the United States. And it didn't have anything to do with mental illness. Nobody was accusing me of that. And I didn't have any kind of political problem or anything, so I thought. But I didn't know that doors were going to close on me, because when this country decided to designate me as the teletorture person, the person that they experimented on, they basically decided that they were going to ruin my life, and that's all that I was good for, is walking on. And I did notice that there were a couple of weird political things that began to take shape about 11 years ago. Or even further back than that. I would say that by the time, it was about 1997, because by the time that I quit working at CTR Business Systems and I was looking at different forms of employment, I noticed that the political climate for me, something had changed. And I didn't know what it was. But I knew that at that time, that's when I first started thinking about what kind of work would I be doing, and then realizing I might, by 1998, realizing I might have to look into teaching English abroad, because I didn't believe I was going to make money in the United States, that people were going to prevent me from making money here. So then I was looking at countries which countries made, basically doing online searches, going onto a computer and looking at what countries made the most money, or paid the most money to people who taught them English. And I was looking at that sort of thing. In 1997 and 1998. I remember doing online web searches regarding what country pays the most. And I remember at that time, back then, it was Japan. So I remember in 1997, 1998, I was looking at Japan, potentially because they paid the most money. And then what's very weird or interesting is that I meet somebody who wanted to get close to me and then who raped me, named Josh Gatoff, who told me that he was interested in teaching English in Japan. And I never said anything to him about teaching English in Japan. It was something that I was looking up privately on my computer. But he seemed to have the same idea for some reason. At least he brought that up. And he never went to Japan. He went to Thailand or someplace when he was escaping a report from me of his raping me of my virginity. I know for sure that Josh Gatoff was working for the federal government. And they have protected him, and they've protected every other person that's raped me ever since. They've protected people who've tortured my son. And over the years, I've tried to take up an interest in different things and different kinds of things that I could do in the United States. There are many things that I could do and do well. And when I held my own lawsuits, I should have won them. I would have won them if I had not been obstructed from my travel by the U.S. government. The one lawsuit that I did win, that I was not obstructed from by travel, because it was a teleconference trial, I did win. But any other case that I've tried to file has been shut down, and even if I've held it up for over 2 years or so, basically it eventually gets tossed out because the United States government has gotten involved in every case and obstructed justice by blocking my freedom of movement. They have not just blocked my freedom of movement, they have put me in jail on the night before I am going to be trained to work at a place that would pay a lot of money.